This podcast is brought to you by Firehouse Subs, the firefighter-founded hot sub chain with a passion for hearty and flavorful food, heartfelt service, and public safety. Ready for your next mission? Firehouse Subs is offering firefighters the opportunity to continue serving after service, now as restaurant owners. Learn more at firehousesubsfranchising.com.
The opinions, viewpoints, and advice shared in this podcast are solely those of the host, Dave McGlynn, and should not be interpreted as reflecting or endorsed by the Department of the Army or the Department of Defense Fire and Emergency Services.
All right. Welcome to another Fire Engineering Podcast, The Training Officer. I'm your host, Dave McGlynn. Tonight's a special show. FDIC just closed up about a month ago, actually less than a month ago. And call for submissions, call for papers, call for presenters, whatever you want to call it, is open. A bunch of us that are going to be on the show today are on the board. And I've talked to a few people after I was done teaching throughout the week. And then people have been pinging me on the internet asking me what they need to do. So I thought, what better opportunity than use the show and call some of my buddies that are on the board and have you hear from all of us on some of the stuff that we're looking for. Nothing earth-shattering. It's just it's come to my realization that not everybody knows what they really are supposed to do or how they're supposed to put stuff together or what we're even looking for. So there is a process. There's a whole cadre of board members and subject matter experts that review different topics. And, you know, we make our recommendation based on that. So without further ado, I'm going to just do a quick introduction of who I have on a show. So I got Chief Anthony Avillo from North Hudson Regional, New Jersey. One of my mentors growing up, and like literally, you know, it's cool that I get to call the guy friend because I grew up in Jersey and the guy was a big deal. So it's awesome that I have him on. Chief Jim Silvernail, Chief Jason Hovelman, and retired battalion chief, a man who deserves no introduction. I mean, who needs no introduction. Frank Ritchie. You guys might know him because he's got a federal law named after him. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I do appreciate it. I think it's going to be good for people to hear from all of us on this topic. All right. So Chief Hovelman, I'm going to start with you just because, you know, it's that's the way we worked it out, right?
Yeah.
Right. So with FDIC coming up, you know, there's different tracks that people have to pick. And I would like you to just talk about, you know, some of those categories or tracks that you personally review, what you're specifically looking for when you're evaluating them.
Yeah. So thanks for having me on, Dave. And it's good to be on with our buddies here. And just a short time after FDIC, but we get most of us get hundreds of different submittals and we get categories. And the majority of the categories that I get engine work. That includes workshops, classrooms, and hot. I also get leadership and management. I'll also get some of those peripheral topics that I guess fall under leadership management, human resources, the diversity, PTSD, some of those things I'll also get. And then I also, if they have submittals for them, volunteer related categories. And so what I'm specifically looking for in all of those, and I know you've got questions on here, excuse me, but a few things right away is, have you taught this class anywhere else? And that doesn't mean a big conference, but have you done it anywhere? Have you been able to deliver that content and get some feedback and refine it, improve it, you know, and make it show ready? Because FDIC is the fire conference and people spend a lot of money and dedicate a lot of time to see great content and great information, because a lot of them are going to take it back, Dave, and teach it, hopefully, and deliver it at their venue. So we want something that has been tested, if you will. And again, it doesn't have to be at a big conference, but in your department, in your region, in your county, you know, any of those things. And conversely, just because you delivered that class at another big or medium-sized conference is not necessarily a guarantee if you've only done it once. So those are some things I look at. I also like to see that there was effort put behind the description and objectives. I like to know, and it doesn't have to be like 10 objectives, but at least there's three that really good points that you're going to pull out of that content and how you're going to explain that, or what the description is that relates to those objectives, so that it's not just regurgitated stuff, although the topics are similar and even some of the content's similar. But what makes it unique to you as an instructor? How are you pulling your experiences and your background into that particular topic that's going to benefit students? And then it's important, and it's odd to say this, but that you submitted your own work. That you didn't have an aide or an assistant submit for you, that you are the one that put forth the effort. And then have you contributed to Fire Engineering, Firefighter Nation in one way or another? I know you've got that on the list for other questions, so I won't get into great detail on that. And then finally, I want to know where you're from. I want to know how many years of experience you have. I want to know where that experience came from. There was it's not quite as often now, but there was a time period with the last couple of years that for some reason or another, people just wanted to say, I'm Joe Blow and I'm a firefighter. And then that's all they want to put down. I don't know if there's some kind of adverse, thought process of not wanting to try to make themselves sound good or whatever, but it's important that we can verify that what you're teaching you've got some experience in. So, for example, if you're from a department that has no high-rise buildings and you've never had high-rise experience, but you're submitting a high-rise class, that's probably not a good topic for you to bring to FDIC when you got people that live and breathe and work in high rises every single day. And so that background's really important. It's not to compare a volunteer versus a paid. It's just to know that, hey, if you're a 3-year person and you're going to submit a class on chief development, probably not going to get through, right? So those are some things that I look for in those initial submissions.
No, I appreciate that, and I love it. I just on a follow up. So one of the processes, if you're a first time person who's submitting, is we also ask you to attach your resume. So now, like, I know not everybody fully gets into the weeds on the resume, but just maybe because I'm a nerd, right? So being a chief and I'm saying the Five Bugle side, maybe you, Jason, and Jim also. When we review people that are new hires, we thoroughly look through resumes and back check stuff. So, like, I think a lot of what you were saying also ties into, like, we're looking for a good presentation, but treat this as if you're applying for a job in the sense that, like, I don't want all the craziest information on your resume, but I want something relevant to justify, like you were saying, your background and that you're a SME, somewhat of a subject matter expert to justify us passing you to the next selection part, So I don't know about you guys, but I share that because when I review, I do look at the resumes. I mean, I honestly do. Like,
yep.
Maybe I'm a nerd about it, but I just do.
No, I think, Dave, to that point, somebody could be a 20-year volunteer, but they've also got management or leadership experience in some other profession that will relate because they've been able to pair up those experiences, right? So, right. Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just to try to make the flow go, if everybody's time goes and we can keep this going right. And I'm just going to jump to you with the same question. If you know, typically what tracks you've reviewed, and what you're looking for, same thing that we just asked Jason, just to hear it from your perspective as well.
Okay, so this was me you wanted? I heard you say Ant. So
yeah, you.
Okay. All right, so Jason, Jason covered a lot of ground, which is all valuable stuff. So I'm not really going to reiterate all the things that Jason said, although those are all valid points. I kind of look at it. One of the things that I saw when a couple of people I talked to, one guy was a really good instructor, and actually he didn't get in this year, which I was really surprised about. But his first couple of submissions, he had put down that he never taught the class before anywhere, and that wasn't true. He just thought that's what they wanted to hear, because at that time, they kind of there was a time when other conferences were, I don't want to say frowned upon, but that's what he thought. That's what he thought. He thought they didn't want you to teach anywhere else. So he wasn't putting down that he ever taught the class anywhere, and he kept getting declined. So I think if you do teach the class somewhere, let us know where. Let us know where you've taught it. But I agree with Jason. Like, if the first time you roll this class out is at the FDIC, it might not be the best place to do it, because most of our classes are sort of. I like the idea of what you say. They're battle ready. They've been tested, evaluated, updated, fixed, changed, and that's okay. So I think we do need to know what where you've taught it, and that you've taught it definitely a few times for sure. The other thing with these submissions, you want to be comprehensive enough with your submission. Don't write a friggin' novel. But the other end of it is when people give hardly any information, I don't think that's really good either. Sometimes you get people give like nothing, it's name and there's just not enough information in there to make a decision on whether you want these people there. So, make sure you give enough information. You're really selling yourself, as Jason said. You're selling yourself. I'm always looking for new faces. So one of the things I always try to do is, if it's a good submission and the guy's never taught before, but he's taught it at the FDIC before, but he's taught it in other places, I always look to give somebody that first shot, because somebody gave me that first shot, I think that's important. The other thing is, I think you need to pay attention to detail in your submission. I've reviewed submissions where, words are misspelled. It's grammatically incorrect. And I got to say that if you're not paying attention to detail in your submission, how detailed are you? You might be a train wreck, and, I don't think I'm going to approve something like that, I generally I do command, I do company officer, I do ladder company operations, so I'm not in the junior leagues there, like some of you other guys with those engine companies. I'm just kidding. I do ladder company. What else do I do? Strategy and tactics, of course. And there's a lot of submissions, and I think people need to submit. You want to submit, and again, of course, write an article. Get an article written. That's one of the things I tell people. Hey, did you write an article yet? No. Well, don't be surprised when you don't get picked. But, again, reiterating just about everything that Jason said and throwing a few more things in here. Hopefully we can help people be successful in teaching at the show.
Right. I appreciate that. One of the things that I also noticed, and Frank, you and I talked about this when we did this, when people were getting the Dear John letters, make sure that you pick the right track. Cause like, there's been times like, I'll be reviewing something, like I was saying to Frank, I said, I noticed that now, of course, Frank, the way he is, I said, I'm also reviewing company officer, and I'm like, yeah, I noticed that became like now the back door into doing a leadership class, was they were putting it under the company officer track, but it was clearly a full on leadership, like not anything for company officer development, but all leadership stuff. Right. Which is great, but you know what I mean? And of course, Frank was like, I love that somebody found the back door, you typical Richie thing. But no, like, honestly, just make sure that you pick the right track. And then, I'm not volunteering your guys to be pinged by people, but like, if you're submitting and anyone that might be on the board, or somebody that wrote for fire engineer or teaches FDIC, hit them up on social media, just ask them. I mean, honestly, just ask somebody, say, hey, listen, this is a class I'm doing. This is the title. This is kind of where I'm looking for it to go. What track do you think I should pick? I'm kind of struggling on which track it should be, because as sad as it sounds, I understand that you're met with a crossroad and you become indecisive, especially if you're a first-time instructor, on knowing which track to pick. I can tell you that it frustrates me when somebody picks the wrong track, not by mistake. So I just say that, like for people that are submitting, also make sure you pick the right track, All right, Jim, you ready, hon?
I'm ready.
Look at
I've
you.
been ready.
Edge of your
I've been
seat.
listening to these two guys.
All right, same
knowledge.
question. What tracks do you review, and then what are you looking for?
Okay, so out of the 700 submissions, no, I'm just kidding. Out of the very numerous submissions I get are leadership, the health and wellness part of it, the mental wellness, ICS, some volunteer. I actually got some rules stuff. I got some wildland and the tactics and strategy. You heard me say I get a lot. We get a lot. All of us on here get a lot. So I think I like what Anthony said is that don't write a book, keep it concise. But where I start looking is just like what these guys said. If you've never taught the class or do not have experience, I automatically put you in a category where you have to prove yourself, which is you got to dig out of a big hole, right? I'm not saying no, but if you never taught it, you're in a big hole. And then you have to really differentiate yourself because then if you're brand new to this, you got to really differentiate yourself in the fact that I will go to the objectives. If you have clearly written objectives, I think that's the key for me. And make it easier on yourself, bullet point it. So I don't have to read through a book so I can see it right away what your objectives are for the class. And the thing is you want to make it unique too for you. You can't go out there and teach a class that's been done 100 times and expect to get picked over somebody that's done it many times at FDIC. Anthony's right. We are looking for the next person. We are looking for the up-and-comers because that's really the future of our organization. But if you're going to do PTSD with all the other 100 submissions, you better stand out. You better be somebody that is known or somebody that really has an inside unique track to it. Maybe catchy phrases or what have you. But you really have to have a situational awareness of where you stand with the subject matter. Now, saying that, I'm not trying to scare people off. We're looking for it. But once again, your resume really has to fit the class that you're submitting. And I think that's very important. And Anthony hit it, or somebody hit it about, like if you work in low-rise areas, don't submit high-rise. If you're not, know what your niche is and stick to your niche. And I think that's how we all got here. I mean, I know that's how I got here. I wrote about the suburban market. I don't write about the urban because Anthony Avila would make fun of me, but I stick to the suburban market because I know that's me. And like I said, Jason's right too. How many submissions have you got that are incomplete, that don't have the resume on there? Because if I say, oh, this is really good, I've never heard of this person, let me go look. And it's like, this person's been on the job 2 years. This class doesn't fit that resume. Nothing against a 2-year person, but if you're going to teach about something, FDIC is not the place to start. Get in front of people in other places and go. And Anthony Avillo, I heard the same thing. People are like, I'm afraid to put on there, I taught somewhere because of the old regime said, we don't want you teaching other places. That's not true. We view FDIC as the major leagues. You got to go through AA, AAA to get it. And we're not arrogant. We just feel like if we're going to provide that, then we really need to provide that product. And I think that's what we look for.
Yeah, you have to spend time in the engine company before you can make the ladder.
And the only other tip I want to give people is this. When you get to the application, write out your actual component within Word so you can take a look at it. You can word proof it, whatever, and make it sound good, and also save it because there's times where you come over there and that application goes boink. You're like, oh, I just lost it. If you have it saved in a Word file, you're ready to go and just redo it. So that's the one advice I want to give to people.
That's great advice. I seriously appreciate you saying that because I do that and I try to tell people that if I get to talk to them is like, dude, open it up, see what the categories are, then copy and paste that category, put it in a Word document, and then answer that yourself, and then read it back to yourself. Make sure it sounds right. Like Anthony said, it's comprehensive, but it's not a book, and like Jason was saying, it's relevant, and that you're relevant to be justified to teach it. No, I'm with you. I'm so glad you said that because like people do, like they don't save that. You can tell. I'm not knocking anybody. Like it is the big leagues. We're not being arrogant. It's exclusive for a reason. And we're trying to entice you and recruit you to want to be part of it and not feel like you're excluded. We want you to be part of it. So that's why we're giving this information. So like there is a process, and that would be a great suggestion is like, I know I can look at them and I can see who prepared prior to submit and then who just submitted, it's just, so that was great advice. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, Anthony, I do I was going to say that about being concise and being complete. You'll grab me within 3 sentences. After that, I start drifting off a little bit. And it's not that we don't take these serious. We take everyone extremely serious. But when you get to the some that are just like this, no, make it concise, make it good, grab me. And then also, like I said, have a bullet. I always suggest having bulleted objectives. Don't put your objectives in a paragraph format that I have to go find them. If you have it bulleted and I can see, I'm like, yeah, baby, that's perfect, No,
I agree. That's great advice. Thank you. All right, Frank. So now I know you're the resident veteran of the group. They've been beating you up.
Got knocked out by Alston, number 1 on the editor list right there, Anthony Avillo.
Oh, all right. No, I meant you've been on the board for since Jesus was a probie, but what? So I know your tracks change periodically. So if you're not sure exactly what tracks you're going to get, because we didn't get released, I'm sure I'm confident I'm going to get the same tracks. But if you're not sure what tracks you got, at least just tell us stuff that you've looked for, and then same type of thing, what you're looking for from some submitters, and then we're going to dive into the next part of that, which was the returners. But talk about the same theme we were just talking about now, so we can close that end up.
Okay, a couple things, and one thing that hasn't been mentioned. If you don't get in, sometimes it's not you, it's us, okay? It's like when your girlfriend breaks up with you. So my first proposal in the FDIC, I didn't get in. I didn't go on Facebook and blast everybody. I worked harder and resubmitted. And sometimes you don't get in because there's so many of that type of class that they have to cut it. There's also a little bit of a secret Doge algorithm that they want so many new instructors each time, and they want some different number of veteran instructors. So you could have the best class ever and still get knocked out just because they have other people teaching that been writing for the magazine for years. So don't ever get discouraged. Just try again next year. Very important. The other thing, to just reiterate what all 3 of the other guests said brilliantly, is when you're a firefighter, there's 3 times in life that you can sell yourself. 1 in your job interview, okay? 1 when you get arrested for a felony, and the 3rd one is when you're applying for FDIC. So think of your career as like a bank account. As you do things, as you work on the engine and finally get to the truck, you're putting that into the bank. And when you take out, all of that information is in your resume to back up what you want to teach at FDIC. The other thing is, I heard the high-rise analogy a lot. Let's break it down. Just because you're from a small volunteer department doesn't mean that what you have to say about what you know doesn't have value, because most of America and most of the firefighters come from small volunteer departments. So don't discourage yourself and say, oh, well, I only come from a small department, so I can't teach this. No, teach something you know, something you're passionate about, and something you do at your volunteer department. Very, very important.
Nice. I'll tell you, man, that was
Nate,
I was going to say, it was very untypical of you to be that short-winded, but there was the end. All right, I'll mute myself. Go ahead.
There was the end. I shouldn't need a vodka soda to see if you're interesting or not. So just like when you go to the interview, if you're saying the same thing as every other jerk that applies, you're going to get knocked out. Say something interesting about yourself. We go through hundreds of proposals. It's okay to entertain us a little bit as long as it's professional and you're saying why you want to teach it. You know, you have value out there. Please put it on paper. And I will disagree with one thing that you said, Dave. You said if you know somebody on the board, reach out to them. No, if you don't know somebody on the board, reach out to them. Every year for FDIC, I have people contact. Best way to contact me is on X or Twitter. I have plenty of people that I've never met, never talked to, contact me on Twitter and say, hey, will you take a look at this? And I've always said yes. And if you're a board member and you don't do that, you shouldn't be a board member.
Hey, Dave, I forgot one thing, if I could say it. And that is, I wanted to say this too. There's a hierarchy here too that we failed to mention, and that is the workshop versus the classroom. Okay, we all know that the 4-hour workshop is kind of so people have to pay for that. They have to register for that. So that is a special thing to get. I'm not diminishing classrooms because, you have guys like Frank Viscusa who won't even put in for a 4-hour because he knows the impact of that classroom. But just understand the classrooms are hard to get. They're much harder to get than the workshops are much harder to get than the classrooms. If you are a first-time submission to FDIC, I almost highly suggest you do a classroom. It's very rare first-timers can get the workshop, the 4-hour workshops. If you don't know, you get 2 submissions. I always put in a 4 and I put in an hour and 45. I've gone back and forth every year on this. It really is not an ego thing. It's great to get a 4-hour because you're there all week, but you have the potential for the hour and 45 to get a ton of people. I'm not saying you're not going to get a ton in the 4-hour, but it seems like they're loaded. But just understand that the 4 hours, there's less of them, and you really got it. You really have to be kind of proven before you're considered for the 4-hour.
No, that's a great catch. I'm glad that you said that. Actually, it's going to segue into the next part. So certainly pick the right time frame. Even if like Jim said, even if you've taught a class and it could be a 4-hour, right? Like when we do stuff for Tracy down your guys' way, right? They get their money's worth, and we do those 4-hour gigs multiple times. You can condense your program and still knock it out of the park if you're a first-time submitter or looking to be a first-time instructor. For us, just speaking, I'm the newest, or the youngest, or whatever of the group of all of us that are teaching there. After you've taught X amount of years, sure, do what you were just saying before, Jim, about picking, hey, an hour 45 and a 4-hour. But if you're a first timer, you can submit 2 classes, but just understand that the class that you really want, the one that that is your thing, it's your baby. The best advice is to submit the hour 45 because you have a better chance of getting picked. For all of us that have been teaching for more than a couple of years, we know that 4-hour is kind of like a badge of honor. Like, they don't just give it to anybody because it's a separate thing. People pay specifically and exclusively to attend your course, right? So it is tough for somebody that hasn't been on the circuit before to draw that audience to come in and register for that class. So just be cognizant of that. I think it's great advice. It's not to deter you to not do it. It's just be mindful that you might have to dial back a program, and I guarantee you can do it. Like, my class I do at FDIC, you've all been at the 4-hour at MU, but I do the hour 45 at FDIC and it lands fine. It's just, you're able to do it. So it's great advice. So it's going to segue me into the next part. Oh, go ahead, Frank.
Dave, before you go on, if I could just add one thing, because that's a great point. But if you dialed your class down from a 4-hour to an hour and 45 minutes, the participants that are in your class don't want to hear that I took my 4-hour class and made it into an hour and 45. Don't distract from your own message. They're going for an hour and 45-minute class. Give them the best hour and 45-minute class. And then if they ask you later afterwards, hey, do you have a longer class? Sure. But I've seen some really good veteran instructors diminish their own command, standing in front of the class, saying over and over again, well, this is really a 4-hour class. Yeah. That does not work at FDIC.
No, that's great advice. That is great advice.
It is great advice because I heard that too. I heard somebody come up to me and say, could you please get your friends, I mean, not just friends, but colleagues, to stop saying that because they're all saying it. So it's a good catch.
Yeah. No, it is. That's great advice because you're right. Because it would distract the students when they're sitting here, like, then they're thinking like, well, maybe I'm not getting the full thing of it. And then it also just takes away from the class. Like, you only have an hour and 45. Don't throw out distractors. Knock that thing out of the park. You got an hour, 45 minutes. Don't talk about dumb shit. Like, Frank, you told me years ago think it was the first time I ever taught at FDIC. I said, well, I really shouldn't be here teaching this. And after the class, you were like, listen, you did a really good job. It was a good class. Never, ever start a class again telling somebody you shouldn't teach it. You're there. You should teach the class. And I've never done it again since that, All right. So back to you, Jason. We're going to talk about returning instructors, okay? So we covered all this for new time presenters, but then we touched on, and Frank really nailed it when he said about, it's tough. You get in your feelings, you go through those stages of grief, and I admire part of it because it means that you cared and you were passionate about it. But don't take to social media and damn the man because of being a victim of that. So, Jason, for you, so what advice do you have for returning instructors that they can strengthen their FDIC submissions and maybe stand out for the upcoming year?
I think one of the things that I personally have learned when I do these classes is a lot of times you can remove some things that don't add a lot of value to the class. That when you originally build it, you seem like it's a real good idea, but then you get in the flow, remove some of those non-essential parts of the class so that you can elaborate more on the really good content, and you can provide more examples that are more relatable and going to provide more value to the students. And then the other thing is, I think it's important to kind of measure. If you're paying attention to the audience, you're going to pick up areas where you lose them a little bit, or where they're a little more disinterested, and try to remember where that is and retool that part of your program. But I think probably the most important thing to do is to keep it up to date. Fresh pictures, fresh videos, change the slide design. Don't bring back the exact same thing that looks identical, sounds identical, because if you're teaching the stuff you have experience at in that year of time period, either through study, through calls, through classes, through whatever you do at work, you should have something new that you can bring back into that program that enhances it and updates it. And I think for me, those are probably the biggest things.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I agree. I'll say this: I'm not trying to give you the answers on the test, and then you fake it. If you're a return instructor, let's say this past year was your first year, right? Be sincere, but also let us know that hey, I taught this class before, and I got some of these suggestions after I read the feedback, or speaking to people after the class or whatever, and I've updated some content and I changed some slides around me. But really do it. Don't just say that in the submission, and then next year I sit in your class and I'm like, come on, bro. Like I already know when the punchline's coming. But yeah, I totally agree with that. It's an ever evolving world we're in. The fire service has to stay up to speed on all that. We're teaching at the FDIC, so sure, there's going to be spots and slides and comments that are relevant that go along with the program and that land really well. Keep those. But update stuff. You have to update stuff. I mean, people are paying a lot of money and taking time away to see you talk about it. If they've heard you say the exact same thing 3 years in a row, like Frank always says about diminishing your command, like you're going to diminish your following, for sure. So I think that's great advice. I appreciate that. Anthony, you ready?
Yeah, unfortunately, Jason keeps saying everything that's in my head.
I knew you were going to say that.
That's one of the things that I think is becoming stale, and go over your program, look at your evaluations, go over your program, and even if it's just new pictures, but I think new concepts are always. The problem with me is like my programs, they just start getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you have to say, oh God, I can't do this even in 4 hours. And now I gotta shrink it back down. I think also it's important that you do sort of a test run with it, so that you're going to make the time. What else was I going to talk about here? The other thing is, if you've been here a while, if you've done 2 or 3 don't be afraid to submit a different class. This will be coming up, if I'm lucky enough to get picked, this will be 27 years for me. I probably have done 15, maybe 15, almost 20 different classes, you know. Don't be afraid to try something new, even if it's in the same track. Don't be afraid to throw a different slant on that. I'm wrestling at that this year. I've done strategic decision making for 2 years in the pre-con, and I'm debating whether I should put it in for a third or put another class in. So, I'm really not sure. And but that having been said, if I do strategic decision making from last year to this year, it was a pretty much totally different class. The pictures, the content, it was expanded in areas. So that's what you need to do. You need to look at the class and say, you know what? Because people, if they like what you do, they're going to come back. I've had repeat people a lot of times, and I always say to them, like, listen, you were here last year. Why are you doing this again? Go see somebody else. But they're like, no, listen, you know what? The class was great last year. I have 4 other people with me here now. And, I pushed your class, So I think if you do the same class, change it around, change it up. But again, don't be afraid to step out of your own shadow and do something new.
Yeah, that's another great advice is, we get that opportunity to do 2 submissions. So if you know that the one, and I'm not knocking it because, in the teaching world, we get typecasted, but it's not a negative thing. It's because that's our wheelhouse, right? That's the thing we're the SME on. But the nice thing is we get 2 submission opportunities. So if you know that one works, fine. But, like Anthony said, don't be afraid to throw out a new suggestion. I've only been doing it 8 FDI. I've only taught at 8 FDICs, and I've already done 3 different classes in the 8. Because you gotta put it out there. So I don't disagree. I think that's great advice also for return instructors. Is hey, sure you landed this one well the past couple of years, submit it again. Or don't be afraid to, if you did an hour 45, say in the submission, hey, I feel this is ready for the 4 hour. I've done it 3 years in a row on the hour 45, but then submit the next one. That's something else that you're kicking around or working on. I think that's great advice. I appreciate that. Jimbo.
Okay. So I will not reiterate what my friends said, but I agree with them 100%. But one of the quickest ways to get a bad write-up is teach a class that's not according to your objectives. And I hit the objectives, how important that is when you write up your class and you submit it, and you're like, these are the objectives. And somebody has expected that because they read it or they went to our app. I'm throwing an app out there. I'm throwing a plug for our app. And they said, oh, I want to see this class. So they get in there and it's not the objectives that were on there. You're going to get railed and you're going to get hit hard, as you should. And really the biggest offenders of this are returners that have been doing it for years. And, so it used to be an unwritten rule that you could only do the same class title 3 times. Is that still the deal, Ricci? Do you know? That used to be the old rule. That you couldn't do it 3 times.
Broken, Jim.
What's that?
Rules are made to be broken.
Right.
That's right.
I was gonna say there's some that do the same and when that's okay because it does so well.
And that's fine. I mean, it works. But the old rule of thumb was not 3 times. So what you do is you repackage it. But the problem is after you repackage it, it's not what you submitted, and that's where you get in a big trouble. So stick to the objectives, and don't. And I will reiterate a little bit in the fact that, don't go back and teach a slide. Don't get in the habit of teaching slides. Teach concepts. Like Jason and I'm going to put a plug in for us, Jason. Jason and I teach we taught a 12-hour workshop. And when we were first approached, like, how in the hell are we going to do a 12-hour workshop? Well, you build modules and you build concepts, and you have to pick the concepts that work. Sometimes you move concepts in, you move concepts out. But it's not the slide that drives the class. It's your concept and what you're talking about. And a lot of times, and I've fallen in this too, because I've gone back 12 years ago when I looked at a couple of my first classes, I'm like, what was this shit? It's like, what was I writing here? And then you have to be dynamic and you have to build it in or build it out. And the situational awareness of understanding who's in your class, and you have to be able to read the class. Don't just sit there and read with a face. You have to read the audience too. If you say something and you're like, man, that really worked, you capitalize on that. But if you're like, man, those guys are bored, I could tell it, get rid of it. Even if you think it's the greatest thing you've ever developed, get rid of it, get it out of there. And the last thing I want to talk about is marketing. If you want to keep coming back to this, I hate to say this, but it's not just about your content, it's about your marketability. If you want to be a returner, you have to start marketing yourself. And I hate marketing myself. Some people are good at it, and it's just, I hate, oh, look what I did on social media. We don't do that because we think we're narcissists. It's because we try to promote what we have and get people to our show. And you have to learn how to market.
No, I appreciate you saying that, because it's true. Like, I recently I went through the ethics thing with work, whatever. But no, I agree. It's a tough thing because there's the fortunate and unfortunate part of social media. So FDIC is a piece of fire engineering, which is the whole brand itself, which has then Firefighter Nation and GEMS and all that. But it's a business, right? And I'm not knocking it. Like, it is a successful business, and we bring hopefully the most relevant content and education to the fire service. With that, we have to market the instructors ourselves and the brand itself to validate that you're getting the best stuff out there. And in a world where anyone can be a social media instructor in chief nowadays, you unfortunately have to keep up with that. And I find myself getting frustrated because I'm like right at the end of the Gen Xers when the millennials took over, and they're surpassing me. These guys they're crushing it on the internet, and I'm always like, well, Jesus, man, like, am I doing something wrong? But you're right though, Jim. I mean, like, if you have something out there, it's not a narcissism thing, as long as you're doing it right and not for your ego and not for notoriety or celebrity status, but because you're trying to just spread a message, and you're trying to utilize these tools like social media to spread the message. That creates the following. It creates that luster that makes it more attractive for more people who attend your class. So if you want to teach the FDIC, 37,000 attendees, well, then absolutely make sure that, you're putting yourself out there in more than just, you're the first time I've ever heard of you putting in for FDIC. And that's not to devalue that, because you could be the best, but it's exactly that. You're right. You do have to market yourself. Make sure you're putting stuff out there, but make sure it's relevant. Don't just regurgitate John Maxwell quotes, because people do that. Just be relevant. Talk about the thing that's your niche, that you're good at, or the thing you're passionate about, the thing you've gained experience in, the thing you teach your crew or your volley house about, and talk about that shit and just put it out there on social media. I totally agree with that. That's awesome advice, because and the way we framed it, the way you just said, like it's not about narcissism. It's because that's the world we live in. So you want to make sure that you have that relevance of keeping up with that. Yeah, great advice. Francis, on you, baby.
All right, a couple things. One, when people try out their class for FDIC, usually it's in a small classroom in their department. So you got to realize when you go to FDIC, generally you have a big classroom that's really wide. So less words, bigger pictures. And your videos, if you're playing a video, I sat in on somebody's class. It was a great class. However, and I talked to them afterwards, their videos played in only a portion of the screen instead of the whole screen, and it didn't work in the big room. But I bet you it worked every time they played it in a normal sized classroom at their training academy. So remember, classrooms are generally in a big, wide room. So big pictures, big videos, less words. Very important. A piece of advice I got from my father, Anthony Avillo, back in the day that I used, because I asked them when I was going to teach her, I said, how do I make sure that I have enough content to fill that hour and 45 minutes? And he said, just overbuild it and end it. And then Jason Emery taught me an unbelievable trick that on PowerPoint, if you know what your ending slide is, or your last 3 or 4 slides or 5 slides, however you want to wrap it up, when you see you're at that time, all you got to do is walk over to your computer real quick and type in the number of the slide and hit enter, and it magically takes you to your end slide or your last 5 slides, whatever you want to do. So it looks like you timed it perfectly. And I don't like to admit that I learned something from anybody from Jersey, but Jim Kirsch taught me when I first got there. And I wish Avillo was back on this call because he actually sat in my class this year and he's like, how do you get away with that? And it goes back to Jim Kirsch from Jersey. My first year teaching at FDIC, he said, Frank, when you teach a class, stand at the door and shake everybody's hand when they come in. And I always do that anywhere I go. And they just give you a little bit more grace. It kind of makes that connection. And if I'm having some audio-visual problems, as they sit down, I go and I shake everybody's hand. And the other thing, if you're going to FDIC, even if you're not teaching, and I see this all the time, especially in leadership classes, you have all these people. This isn't like taking a leadership class in your department where it's everybody from your department. You're taking a class at FDIC with people all around the country that are in similar situations as you are. You can learn just as much from the firefighter, lieutenant, chief sitting next to you as the guy or girl giving the lecture in the front of the room. So take the time to introduce yourself to the people you're sitting next to. Give them your card. That may be a very, very valuable resource. And it blows my mind. Even chief officers, they don't even say hi to the person sitting next to them. It's like that relationship that you can build at FDIC is sometimes just as important as what the instructor is saying.
That's perfect. I learned that from you, so it's good to know that you didn't invent it. But the shaking hands thing, I remember you told me that years ago also, and I do it too.
It's borrowing brilliance. I just tell everybody I can't borrow, but it was really from New Jersey. So I'll give him. I had a week to give him some credit.
Yeah, no, it's because it does work. You're absolutely right. And people, believe it or not, like because we're all human, right? So like. Shit can happen. You could fumble on a slide. You could go on a tangent. Something could happen, right? And if you create that, make it personal and do that humanistic connection, like you taught me that a while back, and I do it all the time now. They're more forgiving because they felt like hey, like I'm connected with this guy. He wasn't just some talking head up there, and also just for return instructors. If you've taught at FDIC, and I'll just speak for myself, I've done this. My first time I ever taught there was I stood in the same spot by the screen the entire time, right? And you called me on that again, Frank. Just anything that I've gotten better at being an instructor was because of you basically telling me I sucked at being an instructor. So, God, anybody listening, like this is all great advice from some of like the people that I absolutely adore and are a sounding board for me. But if you want blunt, honest truth advice where like it's just like they contrary to the name of what they do with politics and all that, Frank will give it to you hard and raw, and it works though. It's so no, but the truth is like work the room, walk around, especially if you get a good crowd. Like there's 100 to 200, even 300 people in that room. They may not feel like there was any connection because you stood in the same spot the entire time. So don't be afraid to walking up and down and calling on people and all that too. And I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence.
Dave, I appreciate you saying that, and it means a lot. But I've learned from everybody that's even on this call, Jason, Jim, you. We all learn from each other. One word of caution: you only get one feedback. So in other words, when you're at FDIC and you're walking around, sometimes whenever you're teaching, you're going to hit a spot where it creates feedback on the speaker. Yeah. Don't walk back to that spot ever again.
Remember that spot.
So once you hit it, okay, I can walk everywhere else in the room except that one spot.
I'm with you. All right. So we covered a lot of the other parts of some of the agenda. So I just want to talk about, and then we'll go around the room. If Anthony's not able to get back on, I got to look and see if he texts.
He's collecting numbers in Jersey, so you got to give him some credit.
Jesus. No, but so like we just like I touched on before, and like we've been discussing. So other than this stuff, back out there for first-time instructors, but also return instructors. Like just because you got in, there's a loyalty to the brand because it becomes a family. Like these are dudes that are on this show with me right now that I never imagined I would be friends with. Not being cliche, but like Jason, like years ago, I started the Passion and Leading Facebook page, and you would come out with one of your first books, and I had reached out to you. And I just said, hey, I really enjoy it. I really enjoy your message, blah blah. And if you wouldn't mind, I would love for you to follow this thing that I started. I'm trying to start teaching and spreading the message, and just let me know what your thoughts were. And then you went and reshared it and said like, hey, this is a buddy of mine. Go check it. I remember I texted you or messaged you because I didn't have your number at the time because I didn't know you, and I was like, dude, I just got like 500 new followers. Thank you. And it's not about numbers. I'm saying like it is unimaginable what doors will open for you. Truly embrace it. Don't take advantage of it, and don't think you're superior to it. Be humble. It is surreal to me that I have company with people that I looked up to, 10, 15 years ago, and now they're people that I can text and call a friend, right? That said, understand that it is a family and you should be loyal to your family. So we have, just like your department last name, your department name is like your last name on your coat, right? Fire engineering is our department name as this cadre of instructors. So if you're trying to teach, you should probably submit to a lot of the content, and that's not a plug. It's just understand, like, you want to be part of that world, you should be part of the world. And then if you're a return instructor, just because, don't let your subscriptions run out. Be part of that world. So, Jason, I'll start with you. Just why is it important for people to subscribe to Fire Engineering and stay connected with the publication?
Well, the most important reason to subscribe to Fire Engineering is because it's the best fire training magazine and content you can get every month. I mean, there's just hands down, you're not going to get the value for. I mean, my gosh, it's pennies on the dollar for what it's going to do for you and your career and those that you serve with and your communities. If you read that magazine, and the quality of instructors, those you've heard of, those you haven't, that share what they've done in that magazine, you just can't put a price on. So outside of FDIC, outside of anything else, GEMS, fire engineering, but fire engineering in particular for us is, I've been reading it for, over 30 years. I wish I still had my collection from that far back, but I don't. But the amount of information that is in there every single month is incredible. And so you do yourself a favor. And I mean, my goodness, if you don't have a huge training budget and all you have is a fire engineering subscription at your department, you have at least one or two drills in that magazine from articles and content every single month, if not every week. So, but you have to read it. And you don't have to read it cover to cover in one day, but read that magazine every single month. And we talk about, if you could improve 1% every day or every week, and then what that compounds, if you could read fire engineering every month, that's that 1%, right? Or 10%. So, but if you're going to contribute to FDIC and you really want to immerse yourself and be a part of this family you speak of, Dave, which is exactly what it is. It's a extended family from our extended family. So we've got our home unit, which of course is our priority, and then you've got our family, our extended family in the fire department that we're with, and then fire engineering is a huge family for us. And it's important that you want to. I guess I look at kind of like FDIC is reaping the benefits of those contributions. It's reaping the benefits of you sharing and sacrificing your time to research and write an article, or to be part of a webcast, or to be part of Firefighter Nation, because there's work and effort that's behind that. And I think for those that do it in service to the brothers and sisters of the fire service, FDIC, when you go to teach there, you've shown that sacrifice, and you've shown that willingness to serve and to share, and that it's beyond just being able to teach at the big show. It's part of being what the intent, mission, and legacy of fire engineering is all about.
Yeah, I have no response for that. That's why you are who you are. That's why he's on the A list. But that's why you are who you are. No, that was, bro. I mean, like, literally, like, very inspiring, very accurate. I'm young. I remember when Tommy was writing the back page and the random thoughts, and that was like my favorite thing in the world. I used to read it in the Island Firehouse where I grew up in Jersey, and it was my favorite thing to read that back page and also the other stuff that's in there. I totally agree. Like Anthony getting yelled at. No, but seriously, like the other part of that is the other part of it is like you said though is it is some of the best training content that's out there. So if you're aspiring to teach, that's exactly it. It's not just present. Like we use the word present, and I'm okay with it. I'm not in charge of the brand, but we're instructors and they're students. And while it is, the show and we are presenting, we're passing on information. We're trying to educate people with something, right? So that magazine is synonymous with some of the folks that you're going to see when you attend, and also hopefully you get to teach there. You should certainly be up to snuff with what's in that magazine and what new brands we have out there, like you said, with Firefighter Nation, with GEMS and all that. Because it's some of the best training and educational stuff that's available in one publication, So it was perfect. You summed that up amazingly. Jim, your thoughts, same thing. Why is it important to subscribe to Fire Engineering and the whole brand?
All right, two things for me. One is it's current, and two, it's vetted. Okay, you know how important that is today? I mean, it's important because this thing called social media has given us all a voice, which is good and bad in certain ways. Because anybody can get on here with a thought and put it out there, whether it's right, wrong, or different. At least if it goes through a process like fire engineering, it's been vetted by some of the top people in the industry. And I think that's where the credibility's at. And, like we've even talked about it. AI is scary because AI can make anybody an author, regardless if you don't have a unique thought in your mind, but this way, that somebody from our industry has looked at it and said, hey, this is right. This is tactically correct. Or, this is responsible. And that's another word too, is responsible. There's been a lot of times where a lot of us have not been responsible in our writing or our teaching because it's marketable. And it's a dichotomy that's a big word, I know. It's a problem because, it's like, well, I know that what I'm saying is not totally correct and it could be unsafe, but you know what? It stirs controversy and it sells. So I'm going to put it out there. I think our magazine does more than that. It's responsible and it corrects that. And I think that's important. And we also try to hit all markets. It's not just the big league. I mean, it's just not the urban, it's suburban, it's rural. And we try to cover all the needs out there. And like I said, it's current. Like some of our books, my book is 12 years old. It needs an update. I'm not like Anthony Villa, who's on, the 30th version of his book. Look at him. He's
with the Beatles cover.
That's right. But this is current stuff. And if you haven't stayed current in the industry in the last 5 years, look at all the stuff you've missed on UL. Look at all the stuff you've missed on tactics and strategies. And this is the way you stay up and current on it. And it's just the way. But the importance of writing for fire engineering in relation to teaching at FDIC, when I look at a submission and I say, oh, this person's got an article on this subject matter. Well, that person now has been vetted and they're credible to my book. And now they just took another wrong hire on my giving them a, what was it, 0 to 4? I can't remember. I know we're going to find out real quick. But yeah, 5. You're in that now. You've gone above the 3 category and you're entering the 4 and 5. So, but that's why it's important.
No, that's I love that. It's current. Anthony, if you're able to weigh in, we're just talking about why it's important to subscribe to Fire Engineering, the whole brand, and especially if you're aspiring to write and teach at FDIC and for the magazine.
Okay, and I wasn't getting yelled at. I was driving while looking at this thing, and my girlfriend's like, "Pull over! I'm driving." Listen, I've been a subscriber for a really long time. It was, sort of. It keeps you current. It keeps your batteries charged. I think that you get a good sort of view of what's happening in the business. And Jimmy, you're absolutely right. Every article there is vetted, and it's vetted by somebody that has been around for a while. And I think that's important. I think if that firehouse, if fire engineering is not on the kitchen table in every firehouse, then the firehouse is sort of missing the boat. You need to look at those things. And again, yeah, you need to stay current so you can write your 30th edition. But yeah, I mean, you guys like, nailed everything. I was listening. My phone actually died. That's why I dropped out. I had to recharge it. It's recharging now. But I think, I just did 4 editions of a book. I don't plan on doing a 5th edition. And somewhere out there is somebody that is going to, take over that position of writing about fireground strategies and tactics, and, maybe not using my, my title or anything like that. But somebody's out there, and they're going to do that, and they're doing the same thing that we all did to bring ourselves to where we are now. We drank the Kool-Aid, and now we're dispensing the Kool-Aid.
I like that a lot. That's very accurate. Yeah, and it's the Abbey Road. It's not just the Beatles cover, but it's the Abbey Road cover, which is what makes that thing awesome. All right, Francis, you're up, buddy.
I think everything that's said is perfect there, and Anthony kind of led into something, and it reminds me of a conversation I had with Joey Birchtold, who teaches flashover. And I was like, why didn't you write in for the article? And he goes, well, flashover, I've been doing it for a while. I go, yeah, but there's new people coming in the fire service every day who need to know about flashover. Vinny Dunn was the flashover guy. Now it's Joey Birchtold. I go, people want to hear from you. So just don't always think that sometimes what's old is new again, because we have new people coming in. And I encourage board members and anybody, write with somebody else. If you're out there and you're subscribing to the magazine, and say you're not like an English major, well, get somebody on your shift that is an English major and write an article together. You'll be hard pressed to find an article that I'm a part of that I write by myself. Unless I'm contributing to a book, I always try to find new authors to bring them on board, because everybody, if you're passionate about this job, you have some value, and we want you to submit articles of fire engineering. Mike Nasty just wrote a search article with me. I thought it was a really good article. We thought we were going to get on Jim Silvernail's show, but he never called us. But we put this article out, and then he called me and he goes, I got such great feedback from this article. When we write in the next one? And I go, we're not. Go find somebody else, build them up, and write the next one with them. You're published now. So I always try to write with different people, because I find it covers blind spots, and it also makes the article just a little bit better. And I've had the honor of writing with Anthony Avillo, who's probably the most brilliant individual that I've ever met when it comes to editing. I mean, he's really, don't let his exterior fool you. He can really edit stuff unbelievably good. I'd put him up against AI. Maybe not 6 months from now, but right now, Anthony can edit
when I'm actually smart.
Yeah, he can edit like you wouldn't believe. In 6 months, he'll be irrelevant, but right now, he can edit pretty good. So, what do you call it? But get with somebody that covers your blind spot. You're passionate about it. The magazine's great. I saw Jason hold up the cover. That was a New Haven Fire on the cover. Got to just put that out there. But yeah, no. Write for the magazine, use the magazine. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be a drill. It's showing a picture at the kitchen table on the volunteer duty night or your career shift night, and say, hey, let's talk about this photo, or let's read Champo's back page and just kind of talk about this. You can do a little 5-10 minute thing at the kitchen table and really hit it out of the park. But write for fire engineering, and it's okay to write with somebody else.
And Frank, you're going to be on the show. I dropped the ball on talent acquisition. I'm behind.
Yeah, I was. You didn't get the show. Is actually, we're not trying to hijack your show, Dave.
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not taking responsibility for that one.
Listen, I actually was going to comment, but I was waiting for you guys to finish. Jason, that's a compliment on how much everybody loves you. Because Frank blamed Jim, and it's both your show. He was like, yeah, it's Jim's fault. And I'm like, yeah, Jason's just innocent. Like, everybody loves Jason. He's like, oh, I'm not going to blame him. It's Jim's fault.
Jason's so nice. How can you blame him for anything?
Right,
He's
exactly.
Nice guy.
Exactly. Oh, my God. we're past the hour, so I'll just say, any final words from anybody? I'll just say, listen, for all of yous, thank you. I tell you all the time, I'm not being corny about it. I love every one of you, and I'm just admired that I get to be friends with you and do this. So thank you for that and being real. They're real people, so thank you. But go around the room, similar order that we did. If you have any final words before we sign off, Jason, we'll start with you, but go ahead.
I'll be really quick. First off, Frank, we're going to get you on the show, you and Mike both. Second, real quick, don't worry about if somebody's written about this topic that you want to write about. Write it anyway. Put your experiences and thoughts behind it. People have been writing about these topics for over 150 years, so it's okay. And then keep contributing, keep plugging away, and we all get turned down with articles, book ideas, classes. Keep pushing. Reach out for help in seeing what you can fix, and keep plugging away, because the fire service needs to hear what you think about whatever that topic is, and choose what you're passionate about, choose what's important to you, and choose what you know, and you're going to succeed in that. And thanks for having me on. It's always good seeing all you guys.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Jim.
Yeah. Be unique in your approach. Don't be afraid to write about something that's out there, but be unique in your approach. Our organization does really great at handling all the different disciplines that are out there, but I'm going to put a plug out there, write tactics and strategies or do a class on it. We need it bad. When I do leadership, there's over 100 in there. When we do tactics and strategies, we're down to maybe 50 or 60. Don't be afraid to write about it. Even if you don't think you're the expert on it, you might be the expert in your world. So just put it out there, and good luck to everybody. Do not be discouraged. It's a great, and live it up. If you get there, take advantage of the whole situation. It is the best event of the year.
Oh, amen. Anthony, final words from you?
Well, I'd like to thank you for having me on here, Dave, and it's always a pleasure being involved with such great friends and great fire service icons. And the one thing you would say is, look, the future people out there, there are people out there that are going to be taking the spots that we're occupying right now. So, sometimes the road may be bumpy, sometimes the hill may be steep, but, keep going. That's what we've done. That's what the fire service always does. And if you want to be a leader, be a leader. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. I appreciate you being on. I do. Thank you. Francis.
Call me Francis. First off, it's an honor being on this show. But if I was going to doge this show, Silvernail and I am out, because Jason answered every question eloquently, and then we were all struggling to make up stuff and come up with it. I'd leave Avillo on for color commentary. So Jason, Avillo, and Dave, Silvernail, we're out. One last tip for FDIC. If you get to FDIC and you're teaching, and Jim hit upon it a little bit, he said, you got to be responsible. There's so many great people out. If you're teaching the next day, go back to your hotel early, review your class, get up early and get to your class. Do not get sucked into staying out. You can stay out the next night. And I learned this lesson the hard way, because one time I got in at 3:30. I taught the class the next morning, and as I'm shaking everybody's hand coming on, I asked one of the students, I said, is that a black coffee? And they said, yes. So I said, thank you. I took it, walked to the front of the room, and just started drinking it. But in my evaluation, it said, the instructor took my great class, but the instructor took my coffee.
So if I can gain what you were saying there, so don't take anybody's coffee that is a student in your classroom, right? Got it. All right. I took a bunch of notes because there's so much. I'm not going to be able to even reiterate it. I'm just going to send it to Mark so he can put it in the description. But at the end of the day, just listen, guys. Great stuff. Don't be nervous. Be relevant. Make sure your objectives are right. Make sure your background meets what you're supposed to be doing. Make sure that it's not a dissertation, but it's comprehensive. Make sure that if you're coming back, that you realize it's an honor and you stay relevant, and you also have updated your program. Market yourself. And, you know, a lot of the stuff we were talking about with the magazine, subscribe to the magazine, read all the stuff that we have out there, submit to write, touch. But yeah, right. There it is. You know, touch base with somebody that is in the magazine, see if they want to do an article with you, you know, and try to get yourself out there that way. Choose what you're passionate about. I mean, that just resonated, you know, with me completely. So thank you for that, Jason. Be unique. If you're going to be rewriting something, like, you know, Jason said, and then Jim said, you know, just because it's been written before doesn't mean that it's not something that you might be able to add to. So just put your unique perspective on it. And then you're the future, you know, like, I mean, I know I'm, you know, only in my early 40s saying that, but like, we are looking for succession planning is the most important thing. Like, while it's humanistic for us to always want to be part of something because, you know, it's that FOMO, you know, fear of missing out. We love the opportunity to be there and we savor it. But the reality is we also want to know that we had people came before us. Like I just said, you know, Tommy Brennan, I never met the guy, and he was the first person that I ever read in fire engineering because, you know, he always had the random thoughts spot. And I thought it was awesome. You know, you will be replaced and we will be replaced. So we're looking for you to get yourself out there and be part of it. And like Anthony said, the road is bumpy. Just stay the course, man. And then, like Frank said, you know, all jokes at one, what the biggest takeaway here is don't take somebody's coffee. If they're, you know, they're 10 in your class. No, but in seriousness, especially if you're a first time instructor, it's very attractive to be able to go out and shoot the shit with the guys and be able to rub elbows and have offline conversations with some of your heroes and the instructors out there and authors out there, right? But if it's your first time, especially, and you haven't mastered the program and you haven't gotten rid of those jitters, that is great advice, Frank. Is, you know, go back to your hotel room. I'm not saying dodge going out, but go back early enough that you can go over your spots and review your content, so that you can crush it, because, you know, it's a great opportunity and you want to be able to replicate that opportunity the following year. So thank you guys. If anybody else wants to say anything, you're free to, but otherwise I'll close it out. But thank you guys. We look forward to reviewing the submissions. We wish everybody the best. We're looking for some great returners and some brand new people to bring us their message. All the best. Hopefully you subscribe, put in for FDIC, stay safe, and thank you. It's Dave McGlynn with Fire Engineering Podcast, training officer. God bless.
This podcast is brought to you by Firehouse Subs, the firefighter-founded hot sub chain with a passion for hearty and flavorful food, heartfelt service, and public safety. Ready for your next mission? Firehouse Subs is offering firefighters the opportunity to continue serving after service, now as restaurant owners. Learn more at Firehouse Subs Franchising.